Sure. Let's
Okay.
go.
So I want to welcome everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us and being patient while we let everybody pop in here. Just wanted to go over a little bit of housekeeping before we get started with our intros and everything, and let you guys know why we started this webinar. And essentially what happened was at the onset of the shelter in place with COVID-19, myself, TJ, Shannon, and Vicky, we're all getting a lot of calls from people both in recovery, people that aren't in recovery, but a lot of people were having a lot of emotions, some emotional duress, and obviously the stress and anxieties of what was going on. And so we decided that because we know so many people in the field that have such knowledge and wisdom when it comes to these things, that we'd start a webinar and offer it as support to you guys. So that's kind of how we got to where we are. Just a couple housekeeping items. Want to let you guys know that this is not a Zoom meeting, so we can only see each other. I can't see the audience. I'm sure that you look good. I trust that you look good, but I can't actually see you. So if you want to communicate with us, go ahead and use the chat feature. Also, the Q&A is probably my favorite part of these webinars. So what I really want you or encourage you to do is to use the Q&A feature of Zoom. So if you have questions at any point during Lyn's presentation today, you can put a question in there. The reason I direct everyone to the Q&A is so that I don't lose the questions in the chat, okay? I wanna make sure we get to everybody's questions today. So do be sure to put them in the Q&A feature. Let's see. Also, I record all of these and put them on YouTube and Facebook. So if you have to leave early or you feel like you want to watch it again or share it with a friend, don't worry, no stress. We're going to post the video on Thursday. That way you can rewatch it and share it if you'd like. That being said, we'll go ahead and do our intros. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeremy Miller. I work at Embodied Recovery. We are an IOP/PHP in Los Gatos, California. We're open and we're accepting new clients in person. So if you feel like you'd like to learn more, just let me know. And that being said, Shannon, we'll go ahead and pass it to you, my friend.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. And we're excited to have Lyn with us today and feeling a lot like the timing could not be better. So grateful for that. I work with Discovery Behavioral Health. We have treatment for adolescents, adults, mental health, substance use disorders, dual diagnosis, and eating disorders in various locations in the United States. And mostly what I love to do in my life is bring resources for healing to people, whatever that looks like, wherever that is, in and out of my own organization. And I've been doing it for a bunch of years. So excited to be part of this crew. And then just a little note, since Vicky's not here today, this idea came to all of us, but Vicky was a great main starter of our resource panel. And so I feel that we should introduce Vicky, who's not here. So Vicky's an interventionist. She does transports, intervention work, and companion work. And she has a company called Equanimity Interventions, and she's actively involved with lots of resources, treatment resources, and again, all kinds of therapeutic resources all over the United States. And so that's Vicky and that's us. And thanks everybody. I'm looking forward to this time at this time.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. And yeah, and if anybody watching right now needs Vicky's contact info, just let one of us know and we'll be sure you get it. TJ, you ready for your intro?
Of course. Welcome everyone. I'm TJ Woodward. I am the creator and the CEO of Conscious Recovery. If you're not familiar with Conscious Recovery, it is a modality of treatment that is used in multiple treatment programs throughout the country, focusing on the wholeness of a person rather than their brokenness, and assisting clients with having a new approach, a different approach that actually helps them get down to the deeper root causes that actually drive addiction. I'm really grateful that you're all here and really grateful for this webinar because I love collaborating with Jeremy, with Vicky, with Shannon. It's always great to share resources. And I know during this time in our country and in our world, more and more people need treatment. So there is definitely not a shortage of people that we can help. So I'm really grateful for that. And with that, I'm going to lead us in a brief meditation before we turn it back to Jeremy and Lyn for an incredible presentation. So I invite you to gently close your eyes. And we begin by taking a nice deep conscious breath. And on the exhale, simply allowing ourselves to become fully present, bringing our full attention and intention to the here and now. So we do set the intention for our time together to be open and receptive and guided by inner wisdom, knowing that every word that Lyn speaks is spoken from her essential beingness, her true nature. And all of us who are watching and listening are simply open to the infinite possibilities that get created when we listen from that essential inner ear, that knowing that we've come here to share, to learn, and to thrive in our ability to help ourselves and others during this time on our planet. So with that, we take about 10 seconds in the silence. And then slowly bringing our awareness back into this time and space and gently opening our eyes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, TJ. And Lyn, I'm going to go ahead and read your bio, and then we can get started with the presentation. So Lyn is a PhD and a pioneer in the field of somatic thanatology. Did I get that right?
Correct. Yes.
All right. She developed a unique approach to grief counseling called degriefing, or integrative grief therapy. The main premise being that grief is the most available untapped emotional resource for personal transformation. Oh, I love that. Lyn, mentored by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and Stephen Levine, received training as a traumatic grief specialist and yoga instructor at the Justice Resource Institute in Boston. She keynoted at the Mayo Clinic, Rochester, and at the Holocaust Center of Cape Town, South Africa. Lyn offers a week-long private grief relief retreats, counsels and trains students and organizations in Africa, Mexico, and the US, and she co-authored and taught in the Grief Studies program at UC Berkeley and at the U of Arizona, published Transforming Somatic Grief, contributed a chapter to Techniques of Grief Therapy, Creative Practices for Counseling the Bereaved, and Sibling Loss Across the Lifespan, Research, Practice, and Personal Stories. Lyn is offering online presentations to organizations, schools, and churches, and can also be seen on YouTube. Her latest research involves mindfulness-based stress reduction, body work, and the use of nutrition to balance the extremes. Lyn works in honor of her husband, Mark Greenberg, and sister, Donna Brown, both deceased. Lyn, thank you so much for joining us today, and let's go ahead and get started with your presentation.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. As I was listening to the three of you talking about the fact that we're in a moment of time right now that certainly I could have never imagined, and most of us are pretty surprised, if not shocked, how our world changed from one day to the next. When losses combine, they do not add up 1 + 1. They add up exponentially. And at this moment in our time, we have so much loss that we can name that I went through my loss awareness list last night and added losses that we never, ever, certainly would never have hoped for, and are still struggling to believe that that's what's going on. As a lot of the commentators have told us, we're actually having 2 pandemics at this moment. Over the last week, this was an 8-day week, ever since, I like to dedicate this seminar to George Floyd. Ever since George Floyd left his life, it's like a pressure cooker, the little piece from the top, that little metal piece that goes, it took off. So we're dealing with losses now, and as I said, when they combine, every primary loss has secondary losses, and each loss is uniquely impactful to ourselves, to each of us. We have many shared losses. So let me say this, that degriefing is an oxymoron. There's truly no way to degrief. The intention is actually the phrase that Jeremy, that's one of the main premises of the degriefing work, that grief is the most available, untapped personal resource, emotional resource for personal and global transformation. We must include the animals that are facing extinction in Africa. When I was in Cape Town working with post-apartheid grief, teaching at the Holocaust Center and St. Luke's Hospice, never was I planning to talk about the apartheid that goes on in our country now that the systemic racism is being exposed to the world. It's a very difficult time. So the title, Maintaining Wellness in the Midst of Quarantine, Pandemic. I'm going to tell you now one of the secrets. The more time that we can spend taking care of ourselves, using integrative therapies to keep us comfortably in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the peaceful nervous system, the gentle system, versus the sympathetic nervous system. People out protesting, people throwing rocks and bottles and police with tear gas. These people are in, not the really quiet protesters and the respectful protesters, but the angry protesters are in their sympathetic nervous system. Integrative therapies, which is one of the main ways because there's an infinite number. That's one of the tools, most important tools for transforming grief. Verbal communication, accessing the grief we carry in our body, the somatic aspects of grief, where we feel the grief, where we feel the hurt. Those of us that are empaths, we might feel it even more strongly than others, just due to the fact that the mirror neurons that we have are registering what other people are feeling. So, in order to honor this moment, loss precedes grief. We grieve after we experience the reality of loss. There's degrees of grief because our attachments to what we lose vary. Losing a necklace doesn't have the same impact on me that losing my sister did, yet it's grief. It's this yearning, this aching, this wanting, this needing to rebalance. And a very young boy was quoted as saying to one of my students, "Don't you know that I'm inside out and upside down since my mother died?" She took a deep breath and she said, "Thank you for reminding me. What do you need now?" And he said, "I need to run." She said, "Okay." They went out back. It was at Cara, the lovely center for bereaved individuals, many different ages, groups for all ages. She ran around with this young man in the back, and at one point he said, "I'm okay, let's go in." So what do we need to know? If grief follows loss, what kind of losses are we dealing with now? Well, on top of the normal losses, and I'm going to take my paper because there's lots of corrections. How about loss of contact through social distancing? Loss provokes grief. How about loss, the experience of loss, that even though I'd like to hug the other 3 people on this panel with me, it's not acceptable at this moment. Hugs boost our immune system. Aha. So if I don't have somebody to hug, I have to find another way to boost my system. How about the loss of our routines because of COVID-19? Notice that these are losses. Notice that, as I said, it's very essential to recognize if I've lost my routine and I've lost the ability to hug my friends and the world doesn't look the same, which is loss of familiarity. These losses all add up and multiply. And why is it that people say, "I'm not doing much, yet I'm exhausted"? Well, you know what? We're on high alert. Even our subconscious is on alert when we're sleeping. We don't know who has the virus. We don't know, did we just pass by somebody who was not symptomatic? Will that change our relationship to our health? So the part of our brain, I have my hand here at the stem, the hindbrain, that's the reptilian brain. That's the fight, fright, or flight part of our mechanism. So do we run toward, as with the protesting? Do we run away and stay safe from the virus? Or do we freeze because we're really not sure? We've never been here before. So the need to continue to find and reestablish balance. You know, homeostasis is a fluctuating reality. My blood pressure, my blood flow, my total system cooperation. It is a fluctuation, like it has its own pendulum. My work is to understand, pay attention, and care for this body because this is my vehicle. And when I care for my body, whether it's doing yoga, playing my Tibetan bowls, which are, over that shoulder, Tibetan bowls, using music, using aromatherapy, coloring books. Now, what I'm giving you is in your booklet. I'm telling you about things because our minds are struggling to focus. And I could sequentially go through degriefing and the formation. Yet what's most important to me right now, your booklet has 45 pages. Why? Because I want to do my part to support whomever has their hands on this booklet. Please share it. Leave my name on it, but feel free to share it because we are all in this together. And we do need to support one another in different ways. So even if it's taking a, cut and paste, send this types of losses. The other one I want to mention, which is really quite important now and very difficult for many people, many families, is the absence of rituals to honor a loved one's death, honor a friend's death. My niece had surgery this morning. Her partner, her fiance, couldn't be with her. He was not allowed in the hospital. What about over 100,000 people, 100,000 plus people? Mass graves. Sometimes it feels as though we're taking segments out of history and having our own new puzzle, our own collage of the unexpected and of the, at times, unconscionable. One of the things that I want to do is comment on a couple of things. It's very important for us to understand that global grief, environmental grief, loss of the cleanliness of our oceans, rivers, streams, Flint, Michigan with lead in the water, possibly building hotels and mega resorts in the Grand Canyon. Those of us who love our environment suffer. We feel the loss. So loss touches each of us according to who we are, our beliefs, our principles, and our own learnings. How did we learn about loss? Was it from our grandmothers and grandfathers? So knowing that we each have, I'll name my loss. Last night, Word shut down on me twice, just when I was ready to send Jeremy the booklet that's waiting for you. Twice. Okay, that's loss. I couldn't make Word cooperate. Let me tell you about a few losses that we've experienced in the last 8 days. We know about the officer that actually murdered George Floyd, protests in over 40 cities, curfews. 3 Minneapolis officers were not yet charged. President Trump declared himself your president of law and order. Over 100,000 deaths from COVID virus 19. And USA systematic racism exposed. I thought it was exposed profoundly during the levees collapsing in New Orleans. This takes it to a new level. I'm New York City born, and when I see what's going on and just remember, it's very difficult. So we also have to monitor how much stimulation we take in, and are we getting enough sleep? So one of the things I want to mention to you is one of the latest losses, and then I'm going to shift and show you some tools to work with this. And your booklet shows you human bodies and what different organs do. It shows you a montage of faces so that when you're not sure what you're feeling, you can take a look and say, yeah, I'm disgruntled, I'm sad, I'm puzzled. There are 23 losses plus another 24 in the last 3 years, including the Migratory Bird Act, the Safe Drinking Act. The most recent is that hunters are now allowed to shoot bears and cubs in their dens. What do we do with this information and stay healthy? We find out what's working for us. One of the things I strongly encourage in the booklet, there's something called a sankalpa. And a sankalpa is a statement in the present that has nothing negative in it. And it's not, I will in the future, or I'll probably try to someday. One of my sankalpas is, I heal well. I embrace my life fully. Because when my mind, who by the way is not my friend, it's a tool. I need to engage this tool, my mind, on healthy self-talk and balance my homeostatic rhythms and learn how to maintain well-being. Is it a hot bath and Roman chamomile and lavender, or Epsom salt and rosemary? Is it acupuncture, dance, putting on your favorite song for 3 minutes, dance with abandon, move yourself, let the pulse rise, let your pulses rise. Do things that will actually give you a sense of well-being. And the mind says, but all the people, over 100,000. Yes, I am responsible for my well-being. I'm not dependent on anybody else to make me feel well, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And I call healing a body-mind-spirit integration, because there's no cure for grief. It's part of the human condition. Because loss, I lost a day of my youth between yesterday and today. Simple. I lose the sun when it goes down. And if I love the night, I lose the moon when it sets. So what I love and what touches my heart is my responsibility to recognize and find. So there's meditations in your booklet. One is from Eugene Gendlin, who's a psychologist from the University of Chicago. And he says, when there's something going on, ask yourself, what is this felt sense? Breathe into it, be with it, stay there, be patient, breathe deeply. Nostril breathing keeps anxiety and a panic at a minimum. And when I start to recognize where this felt sense is and maybe what's happening with it, I have a bodily shift. I follow that because my body doesn't know how to lie. My mind is a trickster, as your minds are tricksters. The body doesn't have the tools, the language, or the intention to lie. If my stomach hurts, it hurts. If my shoulders ache, they ache. My mind can try to talk me out of it, except my body is the trusted barometer of my truth. So sankalpa is a way, and it's a noun and a verb. It's from the yogic tradition from many, 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 many moons ago. It's a verb because we practice our sankalpa. I heal well. I heal well. And it's a noun because it's my sankalpa. You have very clear instructions in the booklet. You also have a very ancient yogic technique in there called Tratak, which I believe are the tools in that exercise of the underpinnings of EMDR. It's the optic nerve. We're strengthening focus by focusing on our thumb. Where is this here with this? Okay, there's my thumb. Focusing on my thumb and then focusing on a distant object and breathing into it and reversing back and forth to strengthen my optic nerves, improve my vision, promote deep sleep. And it happens too, right here, this little third eye. And the yogis say we have two eyes that look out and we have one eye that looks in. This is my pineal gland. And when we have an upsurge of grief, our endocrine system loses its balance. It goes out of whack, as I say. And so this position, the sixth chakra, the Anya chakra, and the pineal gland is strengthened and encouraged to focus with this exercise, Tratak. Just 6 minutes can change the chemical balance in your blood. Now, I want to mention this so I don't forget that the chemical balance of tears of grief are different than the tears of joy, because our bodies have innate wisdom. And I'm a somatic thanatologist. I'm a death, dying, and bereavement specialist. I work with all kinds of loss. Somatic is of the body, the soma. Because if people just depend on what their mind is telling them, they may not be tuning in to honor their bodies the way the body is asking. And I can often tell by how somebody is sitting, by whether their arms are crossed, whether they can keep eye contact, whether they're looking down, whether they can't stay in the conversation flow, that their bodies are telling me there's discomfort, disruption. And we want to stop it before it becomes dis-ease or disease. Because when we don't listen to the body, it finds a way to speak to us. The other thing, the chakra system is a fabulous way for you. Is it your throat that's tight? Is it your heart that aches? Is it your solar plexus? Do you feel punched in the gut or a noose around your neck? Or has somebody betrayed you and your body would arch like you were stabbed in the back? These colloquialisms, these metaphors are in there. Because when you're talking to the people you know and love, even on Zoom, on the phone, and they say, I feel like my hands are tied. They're telling you something. They're feeling restricted. They're feeling unable to accomplish. And the hands are an extension of the heart. So if their hands are tied, their hearts could be aching. And if you say, you said your hands are tied, can you tell me more? They may think you're so psychic, but in reality, you were listening. People tell us a lot non-verbally, and people share with us when they feel safe, and grieving people above all need to be heard. They need to be met right where they are, and they need to be heard. And the mind has a body, and the body has a mind. So this is from head to toe, from arm to arm, a somatic approach to acknowledging that grief is a part of what we deal with. And if we remember that global grief and societal grief, the sociocultural issues in the USA right now are mounting and exponentially multiplying because they just don't add up neatly. So what I want to share with you at this point, because I'm keeping an eye on the time, often I have 8 hours to myself, so I'm being very respectful here. I really encourage, if anybody wants to ask me questions, I offer 20 minutes to a half hour to anybody who's curious about me, my work, and what I offer. So my details are easy to get a hold of. Remember, degriefing's an oxymoron. And so basically, what I want to do so that I'm totally honoring my promise here, 2 things. I want to differentiate grief and trauma because those 2 words get tossed into the same little basket and they're very different, yet they're very related. All trauma is grievous because trauma is unexpected, unprepared for, unplanned for. Not a thought in anybody's mind at the Boston Marathon that in the snap of a finger there would be a crisis and arms and legs and blood and parts. It went from a race to crisis. The loss of the familiar, therefore trauma is always grievous. Whereas grief is not always traumatic. One of my grandmothers died when she was 101. We didn't really want to say goodbye. Yet it wasn't a traumatic loss because she told us 2 years earlier, I'm done. So we'd visit her and be with her, took out her hearing aids to show us how done she was. When she died at 101, we cried, but it wasn't traumatic. Yet, George Floyd's death was traumatic. It was violent. It was out of nowhere. And then he had no. We differentiate when we use the word trauma a little bit loosely, that there is a tremendous difference. And when I studied at JRI, the Justice Resource Institute, I had been on a TV show with Bessel van der Kolk, and that he wrote The Body Keeps the Score. Fabulous, fabulous man, fabulous teacher. I went up to his institute to see and learn. I had been trained in the Shivananda method of teaching yoga, and then I went to learn about teaching yoga for traumatized individuals. And we learned so much about the traumas that are not expressed. Psychological trauma that's not visible is often harder to overcome than sexual trauma or physical trauma. And I am not negating the impact or the horror of each. I'm saying when it's not visible, it's hard for the mind to identify. And often we lead with our hearts because what we want is love. And yet what we find ourselves in is the need right now to assess, what can we do to be part of the solution? How can we actually choose proper tools? Let's see if I can get this clearly. It's in your booklet. Body, mind, and spirit, Degriefer's Toolbox, different integrative therapies for you to try, play, explore. One of my clients said to me, I'm going to stop drinking soda and see what happens. 5 days later, no soda, 4.5 pounds. He said, I didn't expect it. I'm thrilled. Okay, I get it. There's a price to pay for my choices. So when we choose our integrative therapies, and when we use oils to calm and soothe ourselves, we encourage balance. We learn to maintain balance. And a very wise teacher once said, not so bad fall down, important how quick get up. So we will lose our balance, and we'll brush ourselves off, and we'll keep going. And we'll find our way to be in service. Service is its own reward. So for example, palliative care shifts from saving the being, saving the body, to serving the being. When there's no longer medical hope for survival, we serve the being. We make their life meaningful. We make meaning when we have loss. We ask ourselves, what can I do with this? Where is this fuel that I carry, that I can carry forever? Starting out in a change purse size, ending up in a steamer trunk full of losses. So we have a grief timeline. We have many, many ways to work. And I have many Tibetan bowls over there. That's another tool that I cherish. When I feel the need just to be still and gong fabulous vibrations into myself, it's calming. It's lovely. Now, I do lead longer classes. Some are half days, some are full days, and I offer grief retreats. I do a 5-day certification training. Please know you have loads of wonderful information here. And I really knew that I wanted you to have a resource booklet that you can write in, that you can share with people, and you can refer to if you have questions or you want to refresh. I think it's quite important to also invite you. No question. The answers reside in the questions. So no question is foolish. If you're thinking not, somebody else may be as well. And if you feel shy, realize we're really all in this together. One more point before I very honorably turn this back to Jeremy. I want to mention the part about nutrition. I work with recovery. I work with individuals that are used to reaching for a bottle of vodka at 4 o'clock. So we strategize what else can be reached for. Is it an amino acid? Is it a certain food? Is it protein? How can we support an individual striving for sustainable sobriety if we don't talk to them about their losses, because their losses live within. And I've been training addiction specialists, giving them the language, encouraging them to find the courage to look at someone in recovery and say, when did you start using? What happened at 15? Tell me where it hurt. Have you ever shared this with anybody? And my experience has shown me that recovery is much more sustainable. Sobriety is much more achievable if individuals don't carry around pain in their bodies because they don't know that somebody cares to hear them. So now that I'm connected with many other resources, anybody that calls me for anything, I will honor you. If I'm not the best one for you to work with, I will refer you. That's my promise. So Jeremy, please do take the microphone and know that I'm going to put the off button on for a moment and follow your lead.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lyn. That was fantastic. And I feel so deeply that this could not have come at a more perfect time for me, and I'm sure many others too, just with everything going on right now. So really, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and look at the questions. Guys, everybody that's with us today, feel free to load the questions into the Q&A feature so that we can get started, okay? So our first question is from Danielle. She says, while sheltering in place in LA because of COVID and local curfew, I find it necessary but depressing to watch the scenes on TV, news, and news outlets with the violence and destruction of cities and businesses. What is a healthy amount of news intake given the situation? How do you process the news? Should I tell myself this emergency situation will pass?
Well, I agree with you that the news is re-stimulating. And the answer to how much is when you recognize in your body that you are truly now in your sympathetic system. You feel the anxiety, the urge to either fight or withdraw or sit there frozen. And I want to support you in one of the things you said. Many of us are watching what's going on for varied reasons. One of the reasons is, as uncomfortable as it is, and as painful as it is, it's living history. I'm a child of the 60s. We had rainbow flags and burned bras and marched and chanted and sang and danced. It's not the 60s. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. This is real. And there's a fine line between being informed and being overcome. So when you feel yourself contracting, because notice whether you're breathing. Are you so focused on the screen, on the television, that you're holding your breath, and that stops the in and out of feeling, sensation, and release? Will it change? You know, everything changes. If we ask a Buddhist, they will say even grief changes because everything's impermanent. It's up to you to be responsible for your well-being. If you find you can't sleep or you find you're overeating, don't eat while you're watching what's going on the television. Your focus won't be on digestion. It'll be on stuffing because it's so intense. So the first thing, the left nostril's the lunar nostril. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you can close the right and just take some breaths. Don't do more than a minute. It's very powerful. If you're finding that you can't get out of bed, remember I said people are exhausted and they're not doing as much as they're used to. You can close the left and power up and use different breathing techniques to get energy into your system. I believe this is a question many are asking themselves. What do I do with what I'm learning? What do I do with all the grief that I'm feeling and witnessing? All the violence and the destruction. How can I make a difference? Do I need to make masks? Do I need to read to children? I have a treadmill. My treadmill's one of my best friends. I need to get on there and move my body and not take my iPhone. Listen to music or just listen to the birds. So your question's very well stated and timely. And my heart and my gut tell me it touched everybody. We're all asking these questions, even how much newsprint to read or computer to read. Maybe shut it off by keeps us awake. Okay, Jeremy.
Awesome. Thank you, Lyn. Great question. I definitely had the same question, so thank you, Danielle. Next question is, when is your next retreat in Northern California?
Well, the one I canceled was May 11th to 15th, this past month. I'm hoping November. I'm scheduled to speak to addiction specialists at the Behavioral Sciences Department of Santa Clara County in November. I'm hoping November. This is part of the stress we all witness. I can say November and that little voice says, maybe. I can say, I hope to see, go and do, and the little voice says, who knows? I will say to you, my intention is November in Northern California. This past year, I did one in Mexico, and it was for Day of the Dead. So we'll see where the virus is least available to interrupt our well-being. And my website's being redone now, and everything will be up there clearly and wonderfully. And I also do want to mention for people in New York, I'm going to be doing 3 seminars, one for the doctors and nurses, one for the volunteers, and a third one for the families who have lost loved ones and friends to COVID-19. And I'm available to, as you said in the beginning, Jeremy, whether it's a university, a church, a group, my way of service and being in service now is to be available. So hopefully November, please check my website as soon as it's beautiful and you'll see, or call me or email me. I'd love to have you participate.
Excellent, thank you. Next question is, how do you get to the underlying pain grief when you don't know where it comes from?
Okay. That's a very intricate and complex and worthy question. We start experiencing grief as we recognize attachment. When we recognize attachment. We don't grieve because we love. That gives love a bad name. We grieve because we're attached. My husband died at 36. My sister died at 49. I still love them. I would never want to, quote unquote, get over them. In fact, we don't get over our losses. We change relationship to our losses. Now, following the thread of the question, we start losing things at quite a young age. Our favorite blanket, the mobile over our crib when we're put into a bed, our favorite little teddy bear, doll, a harmonica, toy. We learn that loss happens, we don't like it. Because our culture is not only age-defying, it's loss-defying, because we don't want to talk about things that aren't sweet and sugary as a sociocultural agreement. We don't talk about the little losses that accumulate. So what I would do if you were my client and the rapport was a proper moment for the rapport, we would look at a grief timeline, which is a chart. It's a graph, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Because the mind can reason very well in 5-year increments. What did I lose between 10 and 15? What did I lose between 20 and 25? Now, as we start to name our losses, and we start to realize that when I talk about moving from one junior high school to another and how awkward that was. And the memories come up because my amygdala is giving me all kinds of information. My circuitry is really active. I remember not only the good things, I can remember the difficult things. So meeting a person where they're at, finding out where is the grief in the body, even if we don't know. This could be embodied grief being carried for years. So trusting the person you're working with and being willing to know. Andrea Levine once said, and that's Stephen Levine's wife, and they wrote the book, Who Dies? Andrea said, if you can live with the don't know, you can live with anything. So we can always ask this pain, where are you and what are you about? And work that way. I do body work. I develop degriefing body work. And I work on bodies with Tibetan bowls, with aromatherapeutic essential oils, and with loving touch. And the grief lets us know where it is. So for the time being, I don't know, and I'm wondering, what's this from? Wondering's a good word. It gives a very spacious availability of knowing. I'm wondering, please show me. And you can call me.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lyn. Next
You're welcome.
question is, can you shed some light on the movement or pacing around the house? Which part of the nervous system might be activated?
From pacing?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question? Well, okay. This is a perfect question for what we've been talking about. If we were frightened and we were going to flee, or we were frightened and we were going to fight, or we freeze in place, at some point we need to move. If we don't have something, which I named in this booklet, activities to do in quarantine, we need outlets. We are creative by nature, and the hands are part of the creative center. Meaning if the hands are somehow tied, as we spoke before, creativity doesn't flow. So whether you put colored, I love color. Here's my purple pen and my yellow highlighter. Even a piece of paper with color. You could put your non-dominant hand and you can just scribble all over. The pacing is the body's way of asking you to do something with it. You could do the plank. You could sit in a lotus position, or you can go up and down your stairs. You can dance, 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 whether it's Beatles or it's, I can't even think, Van Morrison or whomever. You can put on the music you love and let your body move, because the circuitry needs, our lymph system needs motion to clean itself. So massage and movement keeps the lymph ducts flowing and flushed. So when you're pacing, you can say, I'm pacing. What is it that I'm pacing on, with, for, or want to know about this energy? What's in my feet? What's in my gut? I'm pacing because why? I don't know what else to do, or I just need to pace. So above all, do no harm. That's the principle. It's called ahimsa, ahimsa. Above all, do no harm. So whatever activity, I was the physical education teacher right out of college, and the Yukon Husky at the University of Connecticut. I wore the dog uniform and I danced, because for me, movement's essential. You can see I'm really behaving myself sitting still. If you're pacing, there's something you need to express, and that's what Kubler-Ross says. We can express or we can repress. So when you ask your body, what do you want? What do you want me to know? Don't demand, request. Try different activities. You have loads of choices in the booklet that you will have in your possession. And you can ask yourself, what part of me wants to pace? Is it my feet, my knees, my hips, my belly, my arms? Play with it. Be a kid again and ask your body, how can I have a good moment with you? How can I experience well-being? How can I maintain wellness in the midst of a quarantine world? How long will it last? We really don't know yet. Hoping hoping. Plant flowers. That's another thing. I've been planting flowers. It's very nurturing to the heart.
Wonderful.
We have time
Thank
for
you.
one more question?
We do. Does anybody else have any other questions you want to put in the Q&A? Oh, yep, there's one. Let's
May I
see.
show you something here?
Please.
I'll wait.
Okay, so this is a question from Emil. She says, I find myself always listening to my friends' problems, struggles, etc. However, lately, after each conversation I have, I feel really heavy and I struggle letting their problems go away. My question is, should I tell them to share less or keep listening and maybe do more meditation to learn how to let go? That's a great question.
That's a fabulous question. The answer is yes and yes. If it's too much, see my hands here? Left hand to my heart, right hand to my heart. It's metta bhavana, compassion to self. If it's a dear friend, you can say, I'd love to listen to more, I'm quite overloaded. The other thing you can say is, I have 5 minutes of attention. The flip side of that coin is to employ mindfulness while you're listening. Nostril breathing. I do this process in my training, in my certification training. One speaks, the other listens. They hear, they don't nod, they don't respond. It's all in the nostril breathing. This is the most valuable thing for clarity, consciousness, and grounding. So if in fact, I'm going to name your experience, it's called somatic resonance. If you are absorbing the pain, the stress, the distress, the anxiety, and the heaviness of your friend, you're literally helping them carry their load, except they still have to carry their load. So one of the questions I ask myself at the end of the day is, whose grief is this? Is it from my third client? Is it from the first in the morning? Is it from yesterday and I need to do some writing? Because without empathy, Carl Rogers says counseling is just talking. Empathy, I have to be willing to feel everything my client tells me and then have discharging methods, whether it's a bath in lavender or a half hour on the treadmill. So your question is really a brilliant question. This is where your 5th chakra is of communication. Find your voice and lovingly say, you know, I'm overwhelmed during this pandemic. I don't have the attention span. And I find I carry things too easily now. I'm learning. I'm learning mindfulness. I'm learning some meditation. And I'm consciously breathing as you speak. At any given moment, I might say, time out. Because if I'm not responsible to myself, it's hard for me to be responsible to others. So ask yourself, what do you need? And how good a friend is this? Will they accept your communication if it's not exactly what they want? You'll find out a lot. Be in your heart. Authenticity is the key. I do want to show you before we stop. This is a diagram that you do have. Let's see if I can get it nice and even. Just to give you a note to look at it. You see the parasympathetic? Peaceful. The sympathetic? Stressful. All the tools that I've included are to keep you maintaining wellness during a quarantine world, in a quarantine world. Befriend your sympathetic nervous system. It will be kind to you. And don't forget metta bhavana. We're all in this together and we're doing the best we can. So, I mean, I feel honored to be able to spend this time because it reminds me that I can be effective. I'm not in Minneapolis, New York, or LA on the streets. I'm doing the best I can here to serve as best I know, and that's what I'm here for. So I feel very touched. I've made meaning of this hour of my life, and that's an importantly nice feeling.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Lyn. I really appreciate you coming on today. And this is by far one of my favorite talks that we've had. Panelists, do you guys have any final thoughts for Lyn?
Just thank you so much. Amazing, amazing, amazing presentation. So rich. And I love that you gave us some amazing tools. So I really appreciate you and your presence and your willingness to share with us.
Thank you, TJ. From hearing you, I have goosebumps, somatic little goosebumps. Okay, thank you so much.
Me too, yes.
Shannon, how about you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lynn. I was speaking with TJ, well, and Jeremy earlier today, and another colleague who's actually a participant on the webinar today about just feeling a little like I'm, I don't know, feeling confused, like with the energy in the world. And I'm so like in tune with energy, and this recent rioting and violence just has me feeling confused. And so we kind of were talking through that. So I wanted to say that out loud, because what a day to receive your message. What a day. And also to receive some strength from you, because my gut is so strong and so in tune. And so when I'm hearing you talking about, that's my barometer of truth. And so it just, I feel really empowered and grateful for your time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I wanted to thank Francis, our friend Francis Holmes, for recommending you for the webinar. Of course, we all love Francis so much, and
Francis!
You came so highly recommended. And I definitely would love to have you back, Lynn, if you'd join us again. I think that'd be wonderful, and we'll let everybody know.
I say
Awesome.
yes. It's an honor to be with all of you. And I'm yes. And yes, thank you. And
Awesome.
my heart felt best for all of you. And remember, we're all in this together. So thank you so much. I sincerely mean this. This has been a delicious hour in my life, and I am going to luxuriate in the good feelings. That's another thing. When there's good feelings, let's really be present for them. So thank you so much. I feel quite energized and very, very appreciative. So my answer is yes. You let me know, and I'd be honored to do so.
Wonderful.
We'll be signing you up, Lynn.
That's right.
Okay.
All
a
right,
blessing
everybody.
for each and every one. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today, too, to all the participants.
Be well, and keep an eye out in your email for that handout, okay? I want y'all to enjoy that packet Lynn put together. It's a really beautiful packet, full of resources. So be on the lookout for the email. And if for whatever reason you don't get it, go ahead and get in touch with one of us, and we'll make sure that you do, okay? Awesome.
Blessing you all. Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.